Okay, so we got our NFL Players of the Week for Week 16. The season's going by quick, man. I mean, let's be real here. But we got another group of men who have been selected for NFL Players of the Week for Week 16. So we'll start with offense, no more. So offense, AFC Player of the Week goes to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs had 9 receptions, 145 yards with 3 TDs, and he averaged 18.8 yards per play. And the NFC Offensive Player of the Week, we all know who it is, man. I mean, let's be real. When you run for 6 TDs, there's nobody else to give it to. I
Yep.
mean, let's give it up for Alvin Kamara. Even though he beat my Vikings, I can't hold a grudge. He had a really good game. He had 22 rushes, 155 yards, and 6 TDs rushing. So I'll start with you, Nomar. What do you think about the Offensive Player of the Week for Week 16?
I'm gonna start off with Alvin Kamara. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's an excellent performance against your Vikings, absolutely destroying them with that run game. He's obviously the only reason they won. All 6 touchdowns in that game were from him, and just ridiculous how he does 22 rushes for 155 yards. And now we're gonna go to AFC with Stephon Diggs with 9 receptions for 145 yards and 3 TDs. He went off against the Patriots, obviously, but that was a game that people thought was going to be close and wasn't at all. And people that have those two people in fantasy, the only reason they win that fantasy Super Bowl.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, let me tell you something. I am kind of upset that Alvin Kamara ran 6 TDs down my defense's throat. But on the other side, I had him for fantasy, so it was like a win-lose night. So I mean, I really couldn't complain. As for Stephon Diggs, I mean, let me tell you something. Stephon Diggs is a top 3 wide receiver in this game. I'm sorry, I'm saying it like it is. He's a top 3 wide receiver in this game. I think he is an extraordinary route runner. I really do. I think he's an amazing player. I think there's nobody who has a bigger work ethic than him, in my opinion, in the NFL, possibly right now. I mean, I just think Stephon Diggs is a great player. I mean, if you were to go like anybody else for the AFC Player of the Week, you're going with his quarterback, like Josh Allen. His quarterback had 27 completions out of 36 attempts. He had 320 yards, and I believe he had 4 TDs. I mean, right there is also AFC Player of the Week numbers too, but they gave it to Stephon Diggs because Stephon Diggs was a very crucial reason why the Bills beat the Patriots. And obviously, the Patriots didn't play good enough to win that game to begin with, but Stephon Diggs really did light it up on that defense, on that Patriots defense. So I mean, when I look at it, I really don't got a problem with the offensive players of the week. I mean, Alvin Kamara, record-breaking performance. Stephon Diggs did his thing like he usually does, and I mean, honestly, man, I got to give them all the credit in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, anything else you want to add before we get to the defense?
Nothing at all.
Okay, so for the defense, for AFC Defensive Player of the Week, we have Mike Hinton of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Mike Hinton had 4 tackles, 2 passes defended, 1 interception, and one fumble recovery. And then for NFC Defensive Player of the Week, we had Fred Warner. So Fred Warner had 14 tackles, 3 passes defended, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. I mean, um, I'll start off with this. I don't know if I don't know if Mike Hinton's numbers really pop out to me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's been one of the most underrated players in this game this year. Mike Hinton has been a great key player to that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I mean, obviously, when we're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, we think of guys like T.J. Watt, and we think of guys who got hurt before, like Bud Dupree, and we think about Cameron Hayward, these veterans, Joe Hayden, Minka Fitzpatrick. We think about all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But the one guy we don't think about is Mike Hinton. And Mike Hinton has made a lot of good plays this year. And I mean, I like the grit of him. As for Fred Warner, I mean, he had a great game. I got to be honest with you. And I think he is one of the most underrated players in the league, Fred Warner. I think what he does for a defense and how he sticks out and pops out to other offenses, I think is very underrated because when we talk about like great defenders like him, we're talking about guys who like dominate the league. Like we talk about the Aaron Donalds and the Khalil Macks, and we talk about all these guys. But Fred Warner is actually a very, very good player. I mean, if you remember, he was in the Super Bowl last year and he picked off Patrick Mahomes, and I mean, he had a very big impact on that game for the Niners, and he was a big reason why they kept it close until the last 2 minutes of that game. So, I mean, with that being said, Fred Warner, I think he absolutely deserves it. As for Mike Hinton, I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't think those stats really pop out to me, if you get what I'm saying. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I agree with Mike and stats. Those don't really stand out to me that much. Fred Warner, though, there's some good stats right there. You know, 14 tackles, all that stuff, and a fumble recovery. That's very good. And like you said, how he picked off Pat Mahomes, that's pretty good. That's all
Right.
good.
Well, that was last year in the Super Bowl. But I'll say this: if I had to pick, if see, it's really tough. I don't think the AFC Defensive Players of the Week really stood out. I really don't. I think that's the best guy that stood out for me, and I think that's the guy they picked. As for NFC, if we're gonna talk about somebody who could have possibly competed with Fred Warner, I mean, Randy Gregory had a great game. I mean, Randy Gregory had 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and a pass defended. I think the tackles aren't really showing it. Like, I mean, obviously Fred Warner had 8 more tackles than him, but I mean, when you look at like 3 forced fumbles and a pass defended, that really can compete with Fred Warner. And I mean, it's a complete see their stats right there. The forced fumbles and the pass defended, they kind of swap because Fred Warner had 3 passes defended and 1 forced fumble, and Randy Gregory had 3 forced fumbles and 1 pass defended. But in my opinion, I think it's harder to force 3 fumbles and then to have 3 passes defended. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In my opinion. Somebody else's opinion is different. If you have an opinion, you can comment below. But I mean, Randy Gregory could have definitely won that award. But as for Fred Warner winning, I don't really see a problem with it. As for Mike Hinton, I just think it was a poor performance for AFC defensive players this week. Anything else you want to add before we get to special teams?
Nope, you pretty much wrapped it all up for me.
All right, and last but not least, special teamers of the week. We're going to start with AFC. AFC goes to Jason Sanders, the kicker. He went 4 for 4. He had two extra points. He went 2 for 2 on no. So basically, total kicks, he went 6 for 6. He had 14 total points, and he had a 44-yard game-winning field goal against the Oakland Raiders. And as for NFC special teamers of the week, it goes to Joseph Charlton. He had 5 punts. That landed inside the 20, 67 yards long, and he averaged 47 yards per punt. So I'll start off with you, Nomar. What do you think about these 2 players being named special teamers of the week for Week 16?
I think it was a good call for Jason Sanders, obviously going 4 for 4 with his field goals and 2 for 2 with his extra points in that game winner with the Dolphins and Raiders. Um, the other one, I don't. Special teams is really hard to kind of rank considering not really a lot of people pay attention to special teams that much. Most
Right.
people really pay attention much. I like watching people shank field goals. That's pretty funny. But other than that, I really don't really pay attention to special teams that much. But 5 punts that landed inside the 20, that's very impressive. And yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
much all I got to say
I
for that
mean, I
topic.
gotta, I mean, absolutely, and I mean, Jason Sanders has been a very great kicker this year. And I mean, with Jason Sanders and all the stuff that he has done, I mean, this year, I mean, he has proven to be one of the best kickers in the league. And I can't argue with Jason Sanders. I mean, Jason Sanders, first of all, Jason Sanders, they got to give him credit because I mean, I wouldn't want to say a comeback, but it was a great comeback drive for the Miami Dolphins. And I mean, it was a great throw by Ryan Fitzpatrick, but that game don't get won unless Jason Sanders wins it for them. And I mean, as for the punter, I mean, those are very good stats for a punter. I mean, I feel like whenever a punter has a busy day, I feel like it really is up to the punter to put the other team in the worst possible situation. And that's basically a punter's job. You punt that ball and you make sure that they're inside the worst possible situation. And I mean, he really did. He put them inside the 20. He made it hard for them. His punts really averaged a big, great long distance. And I mean, I gotta give him credit. He did a great job. So let me ask something. So now, before we end up getting off this topic, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Between the AFC and NFC players of the week, who do you think had a better performance? Not total like AFC, NFC, but in each category, who do you think had a better performance?
So for offense, it's definitely Alvin Kamara, 100%. And
Absolutely. I mean, when you have a record-breaking performance like 6 rushing TDs that hasn't been done since 1929, you definitely deserve a lot of credit.
absolutely. And for defense, Fred Warner, he just put up more stats and did a lot better, in my opinion. And special teams is Jason Sanders for obvious reasons, winning that game, the game-winning field goal, and yeah, yeah, it's some pretty good stats for a kicker.
Yeah, well, for Alvin Kamara, I definitely agree with you. As for defensive player Fred Warner, I definitely agree with you because I just don't think Mike Hilton's stats were that great. And then as for Joseph Charlton, who the punter for the Carolina Panthers, you know what? I'm gonna do this, man. He hit 4 for 4. Jason Sanders hit 4 for 4. I'm gonna give Joseph Charlton the edge because I really do feel like he made the Panthers' job a lot easier that game against the Washington football team. And I mean Jason, and it's very close because Sanders had a big impact on that team. And usually I say whoever had the biggest impact won it, but I mean punters, they're very underlooked in the NFL. And they are a big key piece to the reason why teams win or not. Because if a punter can have one bad punt, it really can
It's a
shit.
game.
It can absolutely give the other team the edge. And then we end up blaming the punter, but we don't give the punter enough credit for when they place it inside like the 10, and it forces the other team to go 90 yards. So with that being said, I gotta give Joseph Charlton a lot of credit. I think he definitely deserves a better performance in my eyes. But everybody has their own different opinion, and please make sure you put your opinion down below. But these are your NFL Week 16 Players of the Week.